Welcome to How to Belong, the podcast that delves into the human quest to find a sense of belonging in what can often feel like a lonely world. Join us as we talk to guests who've navigated their own unique paths, what we like to call their hero journeys, from feeling like they don't fit in, to the profound realisation that true belonging can only ever be found from within. I'm Naomi E. Lloyd, and this is the How to Belong podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Belong. We are back for part 2 of our amazing conversation with TV presenter, antiques expert, John Cameron. Hopefully you listened to the first one and came away just amazed by all the mesmerising quotes and knowledge this chap in front of me has to share with us. We've discussed John's experience recently, having gone through the shock of a heart attack, and talked about ADHD in great detail and how that diagnosis has just opened so many doors for John in terms of his self-awareness and feeling, as John said in the first episode, it's not my fault, and that relief that comes with that. And we ended the last episode with one of John's many fantastic quotes, and the question I asked was, do you think people that have the traits of ADHD find some commonality when they meet each other, even if they're not aware of it? And John's quote was something about birds.
Birds of a feather flock together.
That's right. That's the one.
Well, there is. I can't remember the theories on it, but a friend of mine who is a fantastic science teacher, He's got a great journey. Neil Lyons, in fact, a lot of kids in Portsmouth know because he would have been their teacher. And Neil was talking to me about how we vibrate, the vibrations, and that there is something to do with when there's those natural connections with people that you are vibrating at the same frequency. I've been in an airport with my wife, and she has this aura. And I've been there where somebody just walked up to her and said, "This, I'm going to sound like a weirdo. I've never done this before, but there's something, that they can't even put their finger on it." She'll meet people once, and they are charmed and in love with her. She's got a lot of gay friends, and there's just, I always say, if gay people had a female partner, you would be it. You're like the one they all want to be with.
Oh, how beautiful!
Yeah, shit.
Oh.
But we go all around the world.
Jess, your wife,
Victoria, Vicky. Yeah. So we've been all around the world, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I've been to hotels, try and get a room, can't get a room. We're in Liverpool. I won't bore with the details. I was in and out of this hotel all day long. My friend was staying there, Chaz, and we were going to stay with our parents the other side of the water in Liverpool. And I offered money to this guy, please give me. He said, "Look, Liverpool are playing at home. There's no, it might have been Everton. I think Pompey were playing. That's why we were there. There's no rooms, no room. Beg. Anyway, we ended up there having a drink in the evening, and we're about to get a taxi back across the water. And my wife says, "You're rubbish, you are. I can't believe you couldn't get bloody room, And I was like, Chaz, tell her,
Couldn't you use your celebrity thing?
No, he wasn't cutting it. I offered him money. And and he says, "No, Vic, trust me, he did. He must have gone in 10 times over the day, da, da, da." Anyway, she went downstairs, came back 2 minutes later, swinging the keys,
Love
and
it.
She's
what
like,
an image.
She's like Face Man from the A-Team, what we call her. She's like female Face Man. Just, she can go and make stuff happen. She said to me once, she was shopping. I hate shopping because I can't make a decision. I cannot decide, right? So do I have those colour or that colour? And that? So I'm a bit of a Steve Jobs, who is on the list, by the way.
On the list, of course.
He bought a black top, so he liked that black top. So he just bought 20 of those black tops.
I know a few people like that.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. Khaki is my thing.
Maybe it's, you did mention khaki. Yeah. Is that overwhelmed, do you think?
I don't know. Well, I don't know, but she goes shopping. She's a great shopper. So we think, obviously, she's been reading a lot about ADHD because to help me. But at the same time, I think she was ticking a few boxes herself. But we're different people. opposites attract, but also birds of a feather flock together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, because no two snowflakes are the same. Let's come back to that. But she has something about her. And she'll say, meet me in Harvey Nicks. I'm going shopping. I'm going to the Victoria and Albert Museum, of course. And I go there. It's busy Saturday. Everyone wants to be there. It's, cocktails and all this other stuff. Bar at the 5th floor, I think it's called. And I queue up. You've got to queue up to go in this place. And there's a young lady there, and I say, do you have a table for two? Oh, I'm really sorry, it's really busy. And I was like, well, look, I've got this one here, and it's just inside the door. It's like screened off from the ambience of the place. It's, you're sitting there looking at the queue, looking back at you, rather than, enjoying the ambience of the bar. And I said, that's fine, just as long as I get one here. I've ticked one box for her today. I haven't failed, And she turns up and says, what are you doing sitting here? And I said, that's all they had. And within a second, I heard in the distance, Victoria, why didn't you tell me you were coming to town today? He walked over and says, what are you doing sitting here? And she says, well, Mum, I've just turned up my husband. He said to the young lady, excuse me, clear that VIP area. And I said, oh my God, what is it with you?
When are we going out with Victoria?
Well, this is why she's got she is that person. So, but vibrating, we were talking about.
Yes.
So I think that, we give off certain vibes, and I'll give you a freaky example of it.
Okay.
This is a freak example, which also makes me believe in something. And I do believe, but this reinforce it. But again, I think it comes back to sort of vibrating, connecting, some sort of higher connection. My son and I go to concerts together whenever we can. He's like my best mate. The relationship I have with him is the one I didn't have with my dad. My dad and I, we got on. We were good mates, but we missed the boat. He wasn't, for whatever reason, he wasn't around. And but my son and I, we have a great relationship. We go to concerts, and we've done Arctic. We do the stuff. We both like Arctic Monkeys, and and the Stones, and John Mayer, and all sorts of things.
I love John Mayer.
Well, he introduced me to John Mayer. In fact, Dan in the auction, he's another musician in my summer in a band. They introduced. I love John Mayer. And I'm getting to bed one night. My wife says, "This is a Saturday night," and we're talking about go to another concert. His birthday was coming up or something. And she said, what about U2? And I said, God, why didn't I think of that? I loved U2 when I was young, but you kind of drift out of, you overplay things, don't you? And she said, are they still together? I said, yeah, of course they are. I said, but you'll struggle to get tickets. They're still the biggest band in the world.
Victoria did it, didn't she?
Well, in a way. And she said, well, I reckon I could get some tickets. And I said, well, okay, look, good luck. And if anyone can, you can. I said, but my mate Brad, he's a real music fan, and he's been to see him dozens of times, but he knows how to, and you've got to be online. And, the tickets are sold out in minutes for people like you too. Less than 24 hours later, we are having Sunday lunch in the Wheelwrights pub in Havant. That's that's not a plug, by the way, but there are other pubs in Havant. And we're sitting there having Sunday dinner with our best friends, Debbie and Chaz. And a woman walked past, and she had a dog with her, and she walked up to the bar to ask for some water. And my wife smiled, and she smiled as they come back. And she went by again and looked over again. And then she walked over to the table, and she said, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This might seem a bit random, she said, but my daughter's got to go into hospital for a cesarean on Tuesday. And I've got 2 tickets for you too. You wouldn't want to buy them by any chance, would you?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, I literally had a shiver down my spine.
Yes.
And my wife, we just looked at her and we looked at each other, and my wife said, I was only saying to my husband in bed last night, I wouldn't buy 2 tickets for you two. And I think the woman thought she was being sarcastic. And so we're like, all right, let's be like that, And she said, no, seriously. And so we were in a daze of this is not happening. And we literally went out to the car park. She had the tickets, and we gave her my wife said, are you from around here? And she said, no, I'm from Fleet. I'm going to a concert at the Spring Centre opposite the pub. I've never been in this pub before in my life. And by the Tuesday, we had been to the concert, my son and I. But for several weeks afterwards, I was still processing in my head, thinking, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make any sense. How has that happened?
It's not explainable, is it? But at the same time,
was there a vibrational connection? I'd have no idea. And the people I tell that, they go, you're joking. I go, no, it's 100% serious. I've got witnesses that were there.
But they say
Explain
there's
that
no
to me.
such thing as a coincidence, and that you should always be, every time you meet somebody or have a conversation with them, you're exchanging some energy together, and there's always a message to be to be exchanged. So,
Well, I don't know about you, but we all, I'm sure everybody out there has that person or those people that you think about, and then they ring,
yes,
and you say, "I was just thinking about you."
yeah,
And we all have that. And there's one particular guy, it's happened to me recently, in fact, a good friend of mine, Caleb, great guy, and he knew I'd had a heart attack. And we used to go to boxing together a couple of years ago. And I was in the garden, and I thought, there's a little bit of rubbish there, but it's not worth ringing Caleb for. And we hadn't spoken for weeks. And then about 2 hours later, he just texts me, "Is there anything I can do for you, pal?" And I just went, well, that's weird. And I rang him and said, "Oh, so you're one of those people I'm connected to." But there was somebody else, my good friend Viren, who I met, me and Chaz working in London for 3 years up in Wembley. And one of the two members of staff we really connected with. One of them was a really good guy called Viren Solanki, who shout out there to Viren in North Wembley. Anglo-Indian, wonderful, wonderful lad. And we always have this. "I was just thinking about you." And he sometimes goes, yeah, whatever. He'd say, you always say that. You haven't rung me for weeks. And anyway, I said, no, seriously, I was just thinking. Anyway, a few years ago, we've both done this. And I was driving down Piccadilly, going nowhere in traffic, is the truth.
yeah.
And I thought about him. And then for the first time ever, I then thought, I wonder if he'll ring me. Because you never think that. You think about someone and they ring. But I thought about it and I thought, I wonder if he'll ring me now. Thinking that ain't going to happen.
And it did.
And it did.
So that's when people believe, isn't it? That if you put things out there, that it will.
So I think that.
Oh, I've just remembered something you made me think about that relate to you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So go on.
So I was talking to one of my best friends, and we were sitting in a London theatre, a matinee, a couple of months ago, and I was talking about this podcast. And Joe, my friend Joe, said, "Is there anybody like you really, really want to interview?" And I went, "Yeah, John Cameron," because I've met him a few times, and I just really loved talking to him, and I'm really fascinated by all the stories he had to tell, and I think he got loads of things to share. And then you text me.
I know.
And you didn't mean to text me. You meant to text a different Naomi, but you had, and I just went. And it was, the show, the lights went, the dimmed down, is about to start. And I just sort of kept my phone on and just turned it to Joe and said, "John Cameron just text me." And she went, "Ooh," we both got the shivers. And then she said, "Well, you've got to ask him to be on the podcast now," because that was a sign.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, but then I was a bit worried because you had a heart attack. So I thought, what's happened?
So and listen, I'm no scientist, but I watch a lot of, I cannot stop learning these days. Every night I'm watching YouTube, which is like Open University for people with ADHD. You can just indulge any thought that you pops into your head. Look that up on YouTube. My son was like, "Dad, you've got to get on YouTube." And I'm now subscribed, so I haven't got to sit through the adverts,
Yeah.
I watch very little else. But anyway, I'm a big believer in that animals that don't have, have the spoken word still seem to be able to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel there is a telepathy that goes on, and that as humans that develop speech, we probably lost that ability. So, I'll give Uri Geller as an example of this kind of connection. I've met Uri. He's a lovely guy. Film with him at his house, in fact. We did Cash in the Celebrity Attic at Uri Geller Centre. Yeah, he was a great guy. And so I do feel there's something left over from our evolution. It's not getting to alien abduction, but anybody that ever says...
Oh, I'd love you to talk about alien abduction.
Well, maybe for another show, but I'm up for that. But anyway, the common thing that everybody who claims to have been abducted says, they spoke to me, but they don't have mouth, but I could hear what they were saying in my head. That's the common thing. And there is something that I really feel... That's what was going on with that woman walked past, there was something. So I think there's a bit of telepathy there that some of us that are open to it, and we feel these connections with these people, there is, we don't know it's going on, but it's going on. That's what I think.
I absolutely, in fact, this is not meant to be too much of a plug, my first book series Tantra series, it's all about that. It's all about connection and exchanging energies and things. Because I've had those experiences, and your text message from you is one of them. I wonder, this might be a good time, I think, to maybe talk about grief, because for me, I've had a lot of experiences since I lost my mom of just really feeling like she's near me or with me, whether it's been in a dream or whether, a feather has just flown down from nowhere and almost like steered itself towards me, and things like that. And I wondered if you could share any of your experiences there.
Yeah, we've had lots of experience of grief. Personally, I have losing my mum.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, I was 30 years old. No, I wasn't. I was 34 years old. She was 60. She just retired.
That's quite young, though. Very young.
There's a spookiness about it, actually, because two things. She always had my back. She always supported me and defended me. Again, I think she pretty much could see herself in me. And she came along to. She just retired at 60, and I said to her in passing, "You've never been to see me do an auction before." And she said, "Oh, well, I've worked, so not only that, I wouldn't want to put you off." And I said, "Mum, I grew up down Charlotte Street, remember? I was calling out fruit and veg at 12 years old. You're not going to put me off,
No.
That was my apprenticeship for being an auctioneer, was on my granddad's fruit and veg store down at Barrow, down at Charlotte Street, calling out oranges and lemons and things, before my voice had broken." And
you sound like a little Oliver Twist.
I was. That's the cries of London. There was a series that Hogarth did paintings, and these are the people that sold things, and it's the little things they would, cockles, penny a pot or whatever. I didn't sell cockles, of course. But where were we now? No, so my mum.
What a combination.
So yeah. So with my mum, and so she said, "Well, look, I'll come and see you this month. I'll retire. It's June." It was her birthday was in June, so she came along. It happened to coincidentally be the auction where we'd had a phone call a few weeks prior. This was in 2004. To ask this relatively new show called Cash in the Attic was filming. They were filming with a family up at Hambledon. Hambledon, on the Hamble, beg your pardon, not near the boatyard. And they were looking for a local auction house. And I said, "Yeah, fine, you can use Nesbitt's." And they came along, and my mum came along and she watched me that day. And it was during that meeting the director and so on, and he said to me, "Listen, we're looking for a new presenter for the show, and I think you might be good at this." He said, "Do you want to do a little show reel?" I didn't even know what show reel was, He said, "We'll do a piece to camera, and then we'll just mock something up, and I'll send it into the producers of the show." And I said, "Okay, why not? You've got to be in it to win it, haven't you?"
Yeah.
And so we did a little piece, and my mum said, "You're going to get this." And I said, lots of people, they've told me there's quite a few people, they film at lots of auction houses there, so that, a few people they've given it out to. And then they contacted me, say, "Look, we're looking for we want to send a script down to you for this new show we're doing called Dueling Dealers or something." It's a terrible title. I think it was going out on Channel 4, this particular show. And so I said, "Yeah, sure." So they sent another different director down with a script and a sound guy, and I sent it ahead over. I'm doing walking and talking to camera on Southsea Seafront, where there were little kids riding in the back of the shot in their BMXs, making all sorts of hand gestures, the sort of thing I'd have been doing
when you were a kid. Yeah.
So I'm just laughing at it because it's Pompey. There's any town, isn't there? And I don't, remember the song, "Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be."
Greatest lovable. Yeah.
So anyway, so my mum said, "You're going to get this." I said, "Oh, look, then, you don't know you're going to get this." And anyway, at the same time, she just retired at 60. She'd done everything we're supposed to do. She, apart from eating boxes 12 chalk ices and stuff like that. But she'd gone swimming most days before work, and she ate brown bread and brown rice, and she didn't smoke or drink really much, and couldn't afford to smoke. She'd probably had the odd one at a party, but really she didn't smoke. And she developed this cough, started getting worse over the summer period, and she'd had a hysterectomy the year before, and my wife said to, "Look, go to the doctors and tell them you've coughed up blood. Just tell them you've coughed up," even though she hadn't. Go and tell them you've coughed up blood. What it's like. Anyway, they then rush her in, and she discovers she has the advanced stages of lung cancer. That was in the August. So like August the 31st. I think we just got back from Jamaica on a family holiday, my wife and the 3 kids. And this is 2004. And she died within 5 weeks. So she literally was doing rock and roll at her 60th birthday party in June. And, cough, through the summer. Finds out in August, dead within 5 weeks. Died 6th of October. we went to the funeral directors and to Barrels, and on the way back, we sticked on the TV, get on doors, put on the TV. The show we filmed in June was on the telly the day after she died, and she was in it because she had been there at the auction. It's the only time she ever came to auction.
And they captured her there.
Well, she was there, bright pink top on, and she was there quite a bit in this show when they used the shots of the audience. I did get to tell her, because funnily enough, I didn't get the part of this Dealing Jewellers, which is good because I think it did a pilot and never got recommissioned. Because it went out on Channel 4, and I think something like the tennis was on the other side at the same time. So those things are crucial to a show's success or not. Only Fools and Horses nearly didn't get a second commission because the viewing figures have been terrible, and I think it might have been tennis that was on then. I'm probably paraphrasing. And they decided to give it another go at a different time, and the rest is history. But this show didn't go out. But they rang me to say, look, sorry you didn't get the part, but we'd actually like you to join Cash in the Attic. You know,
it was meant to be.
So it was like, you know, I'd lost £1 and found a fiver. Yeah. You know, it was that sort of thing. And that's that. But yes, the grief there, it was a real bittersweet time. You know, my mum had been, you know, and not just mine, but my wife's best friend. You know, my wife came to Portsmouth on her own from a big family in Liverpool. And she was on her own down here. And she said, your mum was the first person that I felt really had my back, you know, like that was just there for me. And it was quite new to me because she'd always had my back, but it became quite clear when they got to know each other that my mum would call it as it was. It wasn't a case of, oh, well, that's my son and he can do no wrong. If it comes to an argument, then I'm on his side. No, my mum wasn't like that. And I really respect her and thank her for that because it made me pull my socks up. If she saw there was a problem with me, she'd tell me, you know, that's, you know, and that's, so when my mum passed, it was devastating to my family, not least of all me, but I was so moved by the grief of my wife and children that it made me forget my own pain. You know, I was seeing that they were struggling. You know, my mum had got me ready for the world. I have a bit of a ability from childhood trauma, I don't know, to my emotions don't count and I can hide them very well and I don't cry. You know, I cry, not anything to do with me. But if I will cry at the one show, you know, I will cry at someone doing a great performance, you know, the emotional. But, you know, I got a phone call at the dinner table in front of all my kids, you know, and my wife that my dad had passed. And, you know, I'd seen him on the Monday for the first time physically seen him. And, you know, we spoke on the phone. First time I'd seen him for a year. You know, we spoke most days, but he got a bit reclusive. And I'd given him some tobacco that he'd asked me to get. And my son, they all just found out, my dad's just died, and my wife and kids have all left the room crying, and left me with my son-in-law, two sort of son-in-laws, and one of them plucks up the courage to break the ice, and he says, "Well, at least you saw him on Monday, John, and give me his tobacco." And I said, "Yeah, he never paid me for that either." I said, "He never something paid me for that either."
Do you think you compartmentalise things?
Probably, and again, there's a serious situation where I make a joke.
Yes.
See, so. With my mum, I always say this, my wife's grief was bigger. And her mum actually said to her one day, look, it's his mum that's died. You know, like, so he needs this. But my kids, it was a real tough time for them. And they experienced grief at a young age, which, going back to positives, you know, it had a lasting effect on my children. They'll do anything for their family. They realise it's not for keeps. That they might be here today, but they might be gone tomorrow. You know, they've lost their little cousin as well, Jamie Lee, who had cystic fibrosis. She was only 15, a wonderful child.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she left a great mark on loads of us. She was a fantastic person, and you know, as many disabled children are, they just make you have a look at yourself. You know, Sheila. So they've experienced grief, and if you can say there's got to be something positive, it's don't take things for granted because they could be gone tomorrow, you know?
So every time we sort of worrying about that, you know, we've overshared or we said this or saying sorry for that is my fault. When if you sort of come back to what you've just been talking about, it puts it into perspective. That you don't have, you know, try not to dwell on those things.
I think when my niece died, Jamie Lee, that rocked the family. I mean, it's still tough because she was such a character. You know, she's a little frail little thing with a Scouse accent. She was cheeky. She had this wonderful. She was a bit autistic, which we think was acquired autism through. She caught a superbug when she was a baby, and she was in hospital. Her brain swelled, and and so we think it was probably acquired in that respect. But she had this wonderful sort of a photographic mind for dates. So she'd meet you once, and then she would ask you a bunch of questions, normally like, what's your middle name, Naomi? What's your mum's name? What's your dad's name? When's your birthday? And you'd get a phone call on your birthday. It might be, you'd be like, hello, who's this? Hello, it's Jamie Lee in Liverpool. I've just phoned to ring you happy birthday. So she had this wonderful ability with dates. And but when she passed, and there is a nice story actually with this one, if we got time.
Yes, go for it. Yeah.
She always kept on to me about. She was absolutely obsessed with Dave Benson Phillips, black presenter, bald head, real jolly guy. Was on CBeebies.
Oh,
right?
yes.
She obsessed about him, and just black people with bald heads. We'd be in a restaurant, and someone, and she just grabbed their head and wanted to smooth it. She was obsessed with them, and she kept begging me, please, Uncle John. She called me Black Sheep BBC. She had this ability to suss out people that were a black sheep. Going back to Birds of a Feather, we know she was a black sheep and she could sense it,
Yeah.
And she always got it right. She never called someone a black sheep that said, no, I wasn't a black sheep, I was good. But
she was saying it in a good way.
She was saying, black sheep, BBC, black sheep. She said, please, Uncle John, please get me to meet Dave Benson Phillips. You're on the BBC. And I said, I don't know him, I'm afraid, blah. Anyway, she got poorly, and we were told that by the CF ward at Alder Hay Hospital that she was looking like she was end of life, She was 14, as I recall. And they said, look, we've kind of hinted to her mum and a family in Liverpool that come and say your goodbyes this weekend. So, it hit us badly. She was sitting in hospital with an oxygen mask on. She was that bad at this point. Her lungs were packing up. And we just thought, I would love to have got, what have I got to lose? So my wife shot up to Liverpool, and I just stuck out something on the internet or whatever in emails I sent out. Anyone know this, Dave Benson Phillips? And anyway, I knew someone that knew someone that knew someone. And I get a phone call on the Saturday, I think it was, just, hello, it's Dave Benson Phillips here. And I said, oh my goodness, Dave, thank you for phoning, And I said, look, my niece is obsessed with you. She, I explained the situation. She's autistic. She's watched over and over and over and over your shows and things. And would you come to Liverpool? I'll fly you. I'll drive you. However it costs to get you there, and I'll pay everything. Just you'd make a dying girl's dream.
Yeah.
He said, I live in Worthing. I said, well, you're only up the road. I'll come and get you if you want. So me, him, and my daughter Lena had a road trip to Liverpool, and we got to know each other in the car. And he was telling me how, somebody trolled him once, and his kind of career took a little bit of a dive. And he started doubting himself, funnily enough, on the right. Said, you sure she'll remember me? Because even though he hadn't been doing the show for a number of years, he wasn't aware that, my niece watched these DVDs on cable over and over and over again. Anyway, we went to the room, and I go in, the family are all there, and on the Monday, and I walk in, and they say, who's this? And she just, barely gets out the words, it's Uncle John, through this oxygen mask. He's really frail. He walks in behind me, and she literally leaps out of the bed and says, Dave! Oh. And I've got one of a photograph. We got it on video as well. And she knew every bit about his career. She sat there. We left them alone. He was holding her hand. And she was absolutely rocking. She rocked. A lot of autistic kids rock. In fact, I rock when I brush my teeth, it's been noted. And we don't know if there's a connection there.
Oh, that's interesting.
I kind of rock backwards and forwards. Anyway. But the next day, the nurses and doctors spoke to my sister-in-law in Liverpool and said, we don't know what happened at the weekend, but personally, we all said our own goodbyes in our hearts to her on Friday because we know end of life. But all her stats have gone the other way. She's fighting back. And within several weeks, she was back at school. And she went to a mainstream school in Liverpool. They fought for a one-on-one. And she was back at school. She was on the transplant list. She lived another year when they said she was dying that weekend. And that's the power of the human spirit. And Dave, bless him, we've stayed in touch. And, I remember saying to him, I'm sorry she's passed, And he said, I said, look, thank you for what you did for us. You gave us another year with her. And he kind of, I don't think he thinks he didn't, but we all know there's nothing will convince us otherwise. She fought back. She was back at school. She was fighting to get herself on this transfer. You gave her a reason to fight. Her spirit was lifted.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you for what you did. And he said, no, thank you. He said, I met her once. He said, but she made me feel special and that it was my career was worth fighting for. And he's recently been on MasterChef and he's doing well. And he's a good guy. He's lovely to see.
Yeah.
Good,
I'm going to look him up now.
He's a really good. I said, listen, when she was cremated, I said there was a picture of you on her coffin.
Really?
There was, and a black sheep. Right?
And a black sheep. And
we raised money in her, her memory. We raised money for a big static caravan in Costa del Real, in North Wales.
Yeah.
Where my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they provide free breaks to children, disadvantaged families, kids from the hospital, and it's we do it in her name, and it helps them with the grief, and it's called DBP, the caravan, Dave Benson Phillips. Getting back to the griefing, sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all.
My mother-in-law struggled, and we all struggled. I mean, I sometimes think, when I said about the 6 years ago, that knocked me, and I started to not care. So I was drinking and smoking and thinking, sod it, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. Life's not fair. I think even my mum's grief came back at that point. I hadn't dealt with that. As I said, I put it at one side, dealt with my wife and kids. I really got a reckless feeling about me, like I didn't care anymore. And that continued. And I remember my mother-in-law, who was a woman of faith. She's a Catholic girl. She had a tough life. She ended up, mum had passed when she was young. 6 kids went into children's homes in Liverpool. Had a pretty rough time with it. She's seen it all, and she's a lovely woman, and she's dealt with all those things, and brought up a family. But it questioned her faith. She really, that rocked her, and my father-in-law. And I remember her saying to me once, "Why would God do that? Why would punish a girl like that and then do that?"
Yeah.
And I remember saying to her, "Look, do you think she changed our lives for the better?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, 100%. Everyone that met her, they might have met her once, but they'd say she did something. She ignited something in her spirit, And her funeral was attended by all the kids at the mainstream school. It was school holidays, and they turned up in their uniform. And one of her first infant school teachers flew over from Ireland. She was now teaching Ireland to do a part of the eulogy. She was that special. And I said to my mother-in-law, "Look, maybe they're the angels sent amongst us."
Yeah.
That's
So
that's how we look at it. It's like they've changed us for the better. Maybe they've got to go somewhere else.
Yes, angels walking around disguised as humans. That's sort of not a quote, but what I like to think of. And that's an incredible story. What an incredible. What was it? Black Sheep, John?
BBC Black Sheep.
BBC Black
Sheep.
So
I've got a tattoo of a black sheep on my left arm. We went to
you made me like.
We went to visit my son, who was living in LA for a while. He was trying to pursue his music career out there, and he was out there when she passed, and it was tough because he couldn't come back at that point, because of his visa. I remember phoning him to say, she's going, this is it, and it was a tough phone call to make, a video call face to face. Anyway, but before that, for probably about 6 months before that, we'd gone out to LA, my wife and I, to visit our son. And the three of us went to Generation 8 is the name of the tattoo shop, which I think is on Melville or Sunset Boulevard. It's in that area. The three of us got inked, is what they say.
You got inked.
At the same time, my wife, my son, and me all getting black sheep on our various parts of our body, which I thought was quite rock and roll.
It's very rock and roll, but it's also a beautiful testament to that girl, a beautiful human being.
Yeah, loads of people from Pompey went up there because my family, my wife's family, they are my family. They visited Portsmouth for 36, 37, 38 years, or whatever it is, when my wife's been down here. They've got lots of friends in Portsmouth, and lots of those people have been to Liverpool and had wonderful times, and so there's so many people met her that everyone dropped everything, just went and they still, people still would give up their time and go there for these fundraisers we do, because they know, oh, she was special, she was sent from above, and I think when you see, this is how I feel. I love the feeling I get around disadvantaged children. I see the looks on their carers' faces and the joy they're both getting, and I get it. I really do get it. And I think that for me, when you look at somebody that's frail, that's struggling, but they're just this bundle of joy and hope, and they don't see what we see. This is her brother, who's John Paul. He was born a couple of days before my mum passed, actually. And my mum being ADHD and coming out with funny things at those times. I remember when we said, Angela's had a little boy, and they're calling him John Paul. Her husband's Paul, and I'm John. Calling him John Paul. And my mum said, one out, one in. She knew she had days to go.
Definitely your mother.
Oh, she did.
Absolutely, 100%.
But I'll get back to that. But the other thing she said, when the doctor came in, we were all sitting around the bed, sort of crying around the bed. My mum's got days, and the doctor came in and he picked up her notes and he looked at me and he said, well then, Lena. And she went, don't tell me. You got my results mixed up and really I can go home. So we were talking, John Paul. I spoke to him recently. His dad got up and spoke at one of the fundraisers, and he said, I don't know how my dad can do that. I couldn't do it. And I said, yes, you could. I said, I'll tell you what I'll tell you. I said, when you think back to your little sister, who was frail, who clearly looked, disabled, not fully able-bodied, she grabbed the microphone at a party and would not let it go. She would sing, she would entertain, she would come out with real things that only had, there's this unbelievable spirit in there that was much bigger than this little frail body. And I said, was she, the confidence she had, she didn't see what we see. And he kind of thought about it, he realised, yeah, she did. There's us, nothing wrong with us. And yet we, I don't suffer that myself, but a lot of people, doing a speech is, they can't sleep for weeks. They cannot sleep for weeks. And I said, look at her. She was disabled, but she didn't see that. And she loved to hog the mic, couldn't get her off the stage.
Yeah, well, she was very grounded and very, from the sounds of it, perhaps not subject to the constant pressures of perfection that so many of us, a lot of us, put upon ourselves. I think it's just an incredible story, and he's so compassionate. And I think it's interesting what you said as well about when we were first talking about losing your mum, and you went straight to your wife's grief and your children's grief, and how you do to compartmentalize things, but at the same time you then had that period of time where you were a bit more reckless again, and weren't caring for John as much as you should be. And I think it sounds to me, if you don't mind me saying, it sounds as some of that was repressed.
Yeah, probably.
And coming full circle now with what's happened recently, then you're having another stage all over again. And that's really positive.
Well, I hope so.
And I really feel like in the two... absolutely. You can see it. I mean, I've got the intuition as well, I'm sure, with you and me. But it feels like this has been a real... it's not a love letter because it's a podcast, but it's a way of saying that to your mum.
Yeah.
And, Lena.
Yeah.
And I think I wish I'd met her. She sounded incredible.
Yeah, she was.
And I wish you could go back in time and say what we know now about ADHD. And I actually feel I'm hearing some similarities from my own mother here as well. And it's similarly that... that it's hard to go through life feeling that you're in the wrong all the time. And I'm hopeful that this conversation that we've had, it's helped me immensely. And I hope people listening, it helps them too. And I just want to say a huge thank you for giving me this exclusive. Have you got anything else you'd like to share?
There is, because I've just thought about it.
Oh, go for it.
But It's to do with grief, but it's to do with connection and all those things we've discussed here today. When my mum passed away, I remember I was watching, it was morning worship, I think. It wasn't something I tuned into regularly, I've got to be honest. Whatever was on in the morning, Andrew Marr or something had finished, and the next thing it was morning worship. And it was with Gloria Honeyford and Joe Brown, the singer Joe Brown, whose daughter was also a singer, wasn't she? I can't think of her name now. Anyway, they were talking about grief. She'd lost Karen, her daughter.
Karen Keating, yeah.
And Joe had lost his wife recently. And they were talking about their faith and so on. And I just lost my mum. And I remember thinking, Gloria seems like a really lovely mum. She seems like a lovely person. And within weeks of that, I get told, oh, she's joining Cash in the Attic. She's going to be one of the presenters. So we get to meet. And we connected straight away. And one day my cousin from Portsmouth, who lost his daughter to meningitis, my niece, she was only 13, she had meningitis. And I've witnessed that in losing a child is the worst. It must be you wake up every morning and, oh God, it wasn't a nightmare, it's true, and that. Anyway, so my mum recommended a book many years ago. I might have mentioned this to you before, but from a friend that lost a son, and she now lives in America, Mary Spencer. And it's called Many Lives, Many Masters. And I can't think of the guy's name for a minute. And that's
Many Lives, Many Masters.
Many Lives, Many Masters. It'll come to me in a minute, the chap's name. Wonderful book. And it's about a lady that's regressed, and it's about discovering, look, we've been here before. I'm not going to do a spoiler on it, but I would highly recommend that book to anybody that's lost someone. If you're searching for answers, it will give you comfort. This book will give you comfort. There's a twist in it, which is what makes you sort of think, wow, It's Dr. Brian Weiss, his name is spelled with a W. Dr. Brian Weiss. Again, I should be on commission for that book, right? he lectures in America. Whenever we've been to New York, my wife and I, we all see is he lecturing, and a couple of times he has been, and you can't get on. And so my cousin who'd lost Elizabeth, he'd read the book and it'd been a great comfort to him. And when I started working with Gloria, and we had this connection, and she said to me, my cousin gave me the book, said, give that to Gloria as a gift. And he wrote in it, to a fellow member of a club no one wants to join.
Yeah.
And so I gave her this book, and she said, oh, that's great, John, thank you. She said, can I write my thank you card? And I said, of course. I said, his name's Colin. And she started writing. I said, funny enough, his mum's name's Gloria. And just, conversation. She said, oh, really? It's an unusual name. You don't see many Glorias, do you, these days? And I said, no, maybe not. I said, I thought my mum's name was more unusual, Lena. And Gloria looked up and she said, that's interesting. My sister's called Lena. Oh. So, I've got an auntie Gloria and my mum Lena. Yeah. She said, oh, that's funny, isn't it? I said, yeah. And I said, we named our daughter Lena Mary, after my nan, my mum's mum. Oh, she looked up, she said, my mum's called Mary. How strange, Mary with daughters Lena and Gloria. So I said, yeah, that is funny, isn't it? I said, oh, by the way, it's my cousin Colin, who she's writing to. It's his birthday today, my auntie Gloria's son. She looked up and she said, it's my son's birthday today. And we both then went, with that shiver, and she said, Gloria believes in the feathers, and we'll believe in these signs, and we've all had these signs. I certainly have. But that book, anyone that's experienced grief, there are lots of great books out there, but it's one book I know I could recommend. It will just give you that faith that there is something else. There is something, and it's based on. Well, it's a true story. It's this guy, this doctor's actual discoveries of when he was treating a patient.
I'm going to put that in the show notes because you did tell me about that before, and I failed to go and get that book, and I'm going to do, because everything about it just speaks to me, and it just sounds as though if you can read something like that and you're feeling really ungrounded, as I have, and that lack of belonging from that origin person that was there for you, with like your mum is, then that book might just help.
Well,
just move it forward.
Think about this. If somebody said to you, when were you born, Naomi? You're going to say your birthday, aren't you? And then I'd say, well, weren't you born 9 months before that?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So at what point were you born? And then when you think about it, actually, this spirit, whatever it is that gives us the spark, right? The DNA, that combination of the DNA, but there's something. Well, that spirit's been on a journey for how long? Because if you go back 10 generations, your great, if you do the maths on how many great grandparents you have, because you got, statistically 4 grandparents. So then you've got 8 great grandparents. So then you've got 16 great grandparents. And so it doubles up each time like that. If any one of those people had not survived, you wouldn't be here today. So there's a spirit that's been through all this, and it's come down to then just 2 people that made you. And that's so that spirit's been traveling for a long time.
Isn't that a wonderful idea? Yeah, I love that. Oh, right, we could talk forever, but I think that is too good that we have to sort of close it on that. But I love that idea. John, I can't thank you enough. And I know you've got somewhere to be, so I just want to say thanks for your compassion. Thanks for how you've made me feel, and I'm sure you'll have made a lot of people feel much better about how they feel about themselves, and maybe a bit more inquisitive to find out, if some of the things that you said resonated with them today. Have you enjoyed it? Your first ever podcast?
I have. Yeah, it's been fun. I've been listening to a few podcasts recently, so it's nice to actually be involved in one. It really is. But if I help one person, then it was worth coming in today.
Well, you've helped me.
Well, thank you. Then it was worth.
And I know you'll have helped other people.
Oh, but my old teacher Harry once said to me when I said to him, "Listen, he was an old man. He was probably about nearly 90, and his wife had said to me, he's starting to reflect on life and was it all worth it? Did he make the right decisions? And when his name was mentioned on Facebook, it was just nothing but positive comments about not enough teachers like that today. He was a wonderful, grown men still in their 60s, still stay in touch with, we're now just his wife, Joan, because she was always involved with the football team. And he said to me, I said to him, listen, Harry, if there's 5 people in my life that made a big difference, you're one of them. I said, jokingly, I said, my dad's not even in the top 5, and he said to his wife later, just hearing John say I made a difference to his life, it's worth it just to have heard that one. And now I know I made the right decision. So, if I get one person today, it's worth it.
Well, I think you may have made my top 5 there, John. I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that. And it was very coincidentally, I felt that you texted me on that day, and it gave me the confidence to ask you to be this guest on today. And hopefully that's all a continuation of connection, that somebody else will hear this. And I'm sure you've mentioned lots of incredible people in your lives. I'm sure they'll want to listen to this and be probably very moved by them. Certainly your wife. Wow, what an incredible lady. So, and your mum and all these other people, these I feel like there's a characters of this amazing story that you're
the journey.
The journey, absolutely. The journey to belong.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.